Greetings, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Tbh. To be honest, we have with us Omar Oliphant. How are you doing?
I'm good, bro. Good to see you from New York to Jamaica, or is it from Jamaica to New York?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely glad to have you on the podcast. Definitely looking forward to this conversation and hearing from you. Now, I'm gonna start this interview different from where I start most of them. I'm gonna start with two stories. Two stories. One is a confession. The name of the podcast is To Be Honest, right? And I believe it would have been the last time, possibly the only time, that we've had a conversation face to face. And in that conversation, I actually lied to you. Yes, I don't know if you remember this, but I'm gonna break it down. I'm gonna break down why. All right, confession time. All right, so it was when I was director of Shahaya, right? And Shahaya was invited to Bamboo SDA. And at the same time, there was a concert going on for Saka, who had a health condition, a young man from Saint Anne, right? And you would have been in charge somewhat of the concert, from what I recall.
Yeah, Save a Youth Foundation, which I started, youth ministries, yeah.
Nice, nice. Now, this was like a rule that I had. So Shahaya consists of students, college students, mostly broke, don't have any money. So whenever we're invited somewhere, the persons that invite us always transport us, always. Now, this was special circumstances. Bamboo SDA wanted us to come, but they didn't have a lot of money. The benefit concert wanted us to come, but it's a benefit concert. So if they spend all the money transporting persons, what's the point, right? So what we arranged was the concert would pay some of the money, Bamboo would pay some of the money, and then though it was a policy, I begged and I pleaded with with the choir members if they could give a contribution as well to transport us, right? They made the sacrifice and they put towards the money. They put the money together. When we reached Bamboo SJ now, I don't remember what the figures were, but they gave us a little more than we expected, right? So I was like, all right, this is perfect. So we got more. I'm gonna get this amount from the foundation so I can give back to the choir members now what they put forward. So we do the concert now, and then you and I are speaking, and then you asked me how much I got from Bamboo, right? And so I told what the original figure would have been, right? Yeah. Because I already made up in my mind that I was gonna give back the choir members, not knowing that you had spoken to whoever it was from Bamboo. And then you said, but the person from Bamboo said that they gave you, and I don't remember what I made up, but I do remember I wasn't honest. I didn't explain it like this. In hindsight, I should have just explained what the situation was. But I recall that I lied about that. So I said, in this conversation, I have to confess that and let you know what that was. I don't even know if you remember the situation, but
I do remember because that concert was very meaningful to us. Saka, as you know, was just this awesome, well, still is this awesome gentleman that we had at St. Anne's Bay Church. And he had his, situation there. We wanted to help and we needed Shahai. Yeah, we needed Shahai. Really kudos to you because that's one of the best choirs that I think we have ever had at Northern Caribbean University. I remember when we had inspirational choir back in the day of Eddie Hippolyte and the rest, and that was awesome. And then Shahaya came with a more contemporary feel. The sound was rich, harmony was very much alive. So I do remember. You don't have to worry about that, bro. That is water under the bridge.
Cool. Second story, real quick, shorter story. I used to work at before when it was West Indies Union. I used to work there at the front desk, and so I'm straight out of high school. I definitely wasn't as fluent and as good at communicating as I am now, whatever level I am now. It wasn't that back then. But I was working at the front desk. So I'm working with persons on the phone and when persons walking. And so I was kind of developing my skills, but I was really shy and it was kind of an intimidating environment for me.
Mm-hmm.
I recall I'd always get letters, and some of the letters would be for Pastor Oliphant, and some of the letters would be for Mr. Oliphant, which is your father, right?
Okay.
So I get the letters in, I didn't really know who was who, but I just knew that there was Pastor, and then there was Mr. So one day your father comes in now, and he wants to speak to whoever he wants to speak to in the office. So I'm calling, and I look at, he says, Oliphant. And I look at him, and I say, Mr. And he looks at me in the sternest way, and he says, well, it's not Mrs. I felt so, like, I didn't even know how to, like, explain, like, what I meant. I just felt so small. Like, he gave me the sternest look, and he's like, it's certainly not Mrs. And then afterwards, he realized why I said that, and he said, I realized. So yeah, man, I just wanted to share those two stories with you.
Yeah, and I just want to affirm your work because listen, I've been following you. It's been a long time since I've seen you actually. So when I come New York next, I'll link you up and we can
Definitely.
But yeah, I've been following the especially the poetry, and I just love it. I love it. I love the way you keep bringing the arts alive, and I think it's something that we need. I think it's something that as Christians we've put to the back burner because arts is not seen like in the mainstream of our Christian faith. And so many of the forms of art which flow from the work like what you do are not brought into the mainstream of our worship, of our church experience. But I want to affirm you. I want to let you know I appreciate what you're doing. I love the podcast. I've been following you. I think you've been having some real conversations. I got a little bit nervous when I was watching one back with what's her name again, from EJC here.
Leslie.
She's from Leslie. Yeah, that one had me on the edge of my seat, bro. You had me like, yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's good
Yes,
work.
sir.
Good going.
I really appreciate it. Really appreciate it. I'm glad that God inspired me to have this platform for these conversations. All right, so let me go to my startup question. Who is Amar Oliphant?
Oh, you said it right. Who is Omar Elephant? I heard you. I heard the E coming out here. I heard the E, man. That's such a hard question. I saw when you put that question to Orlando, and I was like, it seemed like this is a trending question that this gentleman likes to open with.
Absolutely.
I'm Omar, you know. I love life. I love people. I really enjoy the work of God. It's the pleasure of a lifetime to work for somebody who believes in eternity and who is preparing us for eternity. Yeah, I'm a father of 3 wonderful girls, and yeah, married, and yeah, I'm Omar. I'm just who I am. I don't know.
Cool. And just for persons to know, what position do you have now? What are you doing now? Where are you now?
Well, right now I'm at the Hagley Park Seventh-day Adventist and the Oak Glade Seventh-day Adventist churches here in Kingston within the East Jamaica Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. So that's where I'm serving, Hagley Park District HP, as we say.
Nice. All right. So I know that you're just by observing, you're a music lover. And I know that you have some thoughts on gospel music, and I'm always up for a conversation with music because this is what I do primarily. So
Yes.
I know they have thoughts on gospel music and the Eurocentric nature of it. So let's start there. Just tell me what are your observations of gospel music and its nature and what that means for us.
Well, first, let me start by saying that music is powerful. Music, I don't think there's anything that is more powerful than music to change the mind, connect the heart, link human beings, unify us in a central space. Even in religion, music cuts across the board. It is something that invigorates, brings us alive. But music also is a channel for, how do I say this? Music is a channel for the exposure of one's spiritual growth. You 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 you're able to tell from those who are musically inclined based on the words that they put forward, based on the songs that they put forward, where they are. And that experience differs from person to person. But it's so beautiful when you're able to see an oasis, a divergence, a diversity of musical genres that are able to appeal to so many different individuals in their growth process. So yes, music is something that connects, but music is something that I see as a growth mechanism. Many people would not be able to survive the struggles of life and the pain and adversities that come along if there wasn't a musical song which identified with their present situation and ushered them in a new experience. And to me, music is that gateway to growth in many ways. And so music is dynamic, it's rich, it's something that I think we sometimes underestimate its power, its potency, its relevance. And for those individuals who are involved in making music, composing music, writing the lyrics for music, it's so important for us to understand how it impacts the soul, how it impacts the mind, how it impacts the human relations. What is said, how it's said, the beat that is put to it, it brings out a lot more than what is apparent on the face of it. So for me, that's music. I want to start there. And I want to start also by saying that, yes, there are different forms of music. There are different types of music, and people have different taste in music and preferences. And that is just a reality that we have to face, whether or not we like it. For us, though, in this part of the globe, I think we have to have open, honest conversations in relation to, do we believe that is only our colonizers who experience God? Are they the only ones who can be inspired by God to put sacred thought to words and to ascribe a musical or compose a musical piece to that? Do we subscribe to that viewpoint? Do we subscribe to the viewpoint? And these are questions that I'm asking so we can start the conversation. Do we subscribe to the viewpoint that a Black man in Jamaica in 2021 who makes a musical expression, however that form may be expressed, however whatever form that may be expressed in, that their music is somehow substandard, unchristian than the songs that we have in the hymn books? Now, I'm not saying that the hymn books are not important, and I'm not saying there are some beautiful hymns. I love hymns. I don't have a problem with hymns. The question is, are hymns the only way that we give expression to our spiritual identity? Is our music limited to the past? Is our music limited to Eurocentric ideas? Is it limited to American context? Is music restricted in its form, in its identity, in its manifestation from who we are? Or does God work with who we are to bring out a musical expression which brings honor and glory to his name?
You know, it's funny you went there, because I just did an AY program maybe 2 months ago on the very topic of hymns. And a lot of the time, we as church folk, we view the hymnal as the musical version of the Bible, but it's really not. It's really not. It's a collection of songs that we kind of have, like, it's almost like our standards. So like in jazz music, there's certain standards that like everybody knows. It's like our standard book, but it's no more sacred than anything else. Those persons were writing on their experience. And as you said, persons nowadays can write on their experience. And in the Bible, it says, sing unto the Lord a new song. And we always just say that, but literally, we must be able to sing unto the Lord a new song because he's still doing things for us. And I brought up the point that in the Bible, when the children of Israel went through the Red Sea and the sea came back and killed their enemies, immediately they started singing on the experience that they just had, right? So I think, as you said, it's important for us to be able to recognize that God is doing stuff for us as well, and to be able to sing about it. The other thing I'll say is, many times the words of the hymn, now, I love hymns, hymns. And as a musician and an arranger, hymns are my favorite things to arrange. But we have to be real about certain things. Some of the wording in the hymns doesn't really apply to us. Like, a mighty fortress is our God. Like, what is a fortress? Like, some persons don't even know. Now, powerful hymn. And if you know the meaning, then amazing, and you can apply it to your life. But sometimes we're just calling words, or some persons are just calling words, but the words don't really have that connection to us. Now, back in the day, a fortress is life or death for you, so it connects more. But I feel like when we write hymns based on our experience now, it has the ability to connect in ways that some of the songs from yesteryear, just might not connect the same way.
And Dale, it's something that we have to understand, that songs are birthed out of experience, personal experience. And songs, when they are birthed out of personal experience, it then connects with other person's experiences. And that is how the Christian church has been able to survive through so many different ages, to so many different eras, to so many different adversities, because the songs reflected what was happening at a particular moment. It invigorated the negative experiences, invigorated or inspired, individuals to see beyond the current moment and to conceptualize or experience a spiritual, a rich spiritual experience at that moment in the midst of the negativity. And so from generation to generation, we have been passing on. When you think about that song that is written by Bill and Gloria Gaither, beautiful hymn, how sweet to hold a newborn baby and feel the warmth and joy it brings. Yeah, but greater still, the calm assurance this child can face on certain days because he lives. He lives, yeah, because and you go through and you feel that, you feel you connect with it. My question is, are Bill and Gloria Gaither the only ones who have that experience?
Mm-hmm.
Are we limiting the expression of our young people? Are we limiting the spiritual expression of our people when we restrict the spiritual encounter to just those hymns, beautiful as they are? Martin Luther wrote A Mighty Fortress. It was Martin Luther, I think. No, the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
Okay.
Yeah. And it encapsulates so much of what he felt in that era. And so the question is God doing anything for us now?
Right.
Is God working with us now? Is God speaking to us now? The language, for example, of the Bible is centered within a context. We're not critiquing the scriptures in that way. What I'm simply saying is a matter of a fact. The language of the Bible is set within a particular culture and context that we don't experience. For example, when David in his psalm, which is a song, says, the cat up on 1,000 hills. Yeah, it's an agrarian society. It's a society that is based mainly on farming. It's not today's industrial society. It's not today's technological society. And the language is filled with language like that. Nothing is wrong with that. Because the depth of the spiritual text is so powerful that even when it's taken out of its the context in which it was birthed, it still has meaning and dynamism and finds new expression in today's day. But the question we must ask ourselves is, is it restricted to those era? And my thing is, no, it is not. And that we need to open our hearts and we need to open our minds to understanding that spiritual forms of arts, whether it is in pictures, words, or sounds, are able to connect with the current generation and to pull the current generation with us into the realm of truth that sometimes we as pastors are not able to adequately bring across through the spoken word.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts of reggae music being used in church or for worship?
Well, I'm not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not there yet. I don't discriminate against it. I do know that the issue for me is about taking something secular and baptizing it and calling it spiritual. I think if it is inherently authentic and at its core it is genuine, I'll work with that. But what I'm seeing a lot is that people are just taking a beat, and putting some words to that. And I think that's a different aspect of it. I think spiritual music has to be much more than baptizing the secular and bringing it into the sacred realm. I think spiritual music is sacred. It needs to be manifested in a colorful way, a vibrant way, a meaningful way. But I also think that it must be inherently authentic at its core.
Okay, so let me ask, you said taking something secular and baptizing it. How do we define what's secular and what's sacred? What do we use to define that?
Well, that's a very good question. If its origins, for example, if its origins are from the secular realm, it's in Jamaica here we have their dancehall beats like rhythms, and the rhythms are just, that is a secular rhythm. It's built for the secular world. And that is what I mean. It's composed within the secular realm, composed by secular individuals who do not understand the depth of the spiritual experience. And so for me, and I know there are individuals who will disagree with me on that, and I'm okay with that. But for me, taking it from a dancehall beat or a reggae beat and bringing it into the Christian realm to call it spiritual, I don't think that is the authentic value that we want to concentrate on.
Okay. You said persons will disagree. I think I'm one of those persons that would disagree to an extent. I think that there are two ways that I look at it. Mm-hmm. Is something inherently wrong? And then I look at, okay, what's going to be the fruits of this, right? So there are certain things I might not do because I know that the fruit won't be desirable. If I know that half of the church is going to be offended by something, then I won't be ministering to them. So I wouldn't do it from that standpoint. But as it relates to the principle in and of itself, so here's my, is that this is a theory / observation that I have. And I think it forms how persons think on these things. So the reality is, when you look at music used in the church, let's take classical music, for example. So we'll use classical music in the church and we'll call it heavenly music and love that. But classical music is used a lot in the secular realm, right? A lot in the secular realm. When we look at country, pretty much Gaithers and all that's pretty much country. We call it Southern gospel, but it's country music, and country is also used in the secular realm. I think what shapes our opinion a lot of the time is when you come from a country like Jamaica, your primary exposure to reggae is secular. And so your personal association when you hear reggae is secular. And if for that reason, when it's played, if it's used in church, if it brings you to worldly thoughts, I can appreciate that. I have a church sister here in Brooklyn, and her first introduction to reggae was Donnie McClurkin's Reggae Medley.
Yeah.
That's her first introduction to reggae. And so when she hears reggae music, it brings her to spiritual thoughts, right?
Okay.
So I think the personal experience plays a large role in how we relate to genres of music. If we look at ska is largely accepted when we're playing the choruses. What a mighty God we serve, or we're together again. We don't say to the church, this is ska, right? Or we're playing ska and the church accepts it because we've become accustomed to hearing that in church, accompanying the choruses. But if we slow it down and it becomes reggae, now we think worldly. So for me, I think a lot of it has to do with where you've grown up, what you're accustomed to hearing in church, and so what you personally deem as sacred and secular, but not necessarily the music itself being wrong. That's my thoughts.
I'm not saying that the music is wrong. My view is just simply that you don't take the secular beat and bring it into the church. If you want to create something for God, do it something authentic. Do it original. And I think I would have a greater appreciation for reggae gospel if it were that we would respect that distinction, and you do it in a way that is it's not taking the rhythm of the world and bringing it into the church. It is doing something original, authentic.
So in other words, it's not like, because I noticed like maybe like Kirk Franklin or some of these artists, like they intentionally try to like hip hop their gospel or whatever. So I guess what you're saying is not to try to be like the world, but if in your genuine expression.
Yeah, but Dale, that's if we're Christians, it has to flow from God.
Mm-hmm.
It has to flow from God, and I think that's the point that I mean. If the music flows from God, cool. I'm saying you don't need to go and take what's already out there and just put some Christian words to the beat and then carry it into the church. You don't need to do that. If God has inspired you as a musician, and if you believe that this is your calling, this is your art, this is your craft, and nothing is wrong with that, because in the sanctuary in David's day, there were numerous new musicians. David himself was a chief musician, and as I said, music, spiritual music, is not just words and lyrics. It's not just composition. It's deeper than that. It's ministry to the soul. It's birth out of a personal experience. And that is why you see it all through scripture, where, as you mentioned earlier, when they were delivered at the Red Sea, they burst into song. You come over into Revelation, it speaks about us singing the song of Moses, but it doesn't just stop there. The song of the Lamb, right? It's birth out of a spiritual experience with God. Right. So it's not just to I'll use myself as a preacher. It's not just to get up and to take a TD Jakes sermon and to baptize it and carry it and preach. No. Your sermon must be birthed out of you having a soul connection, a one-on-one connection with God. It must be something deep. It must be something, when your preacher is preaching from his soul. You know when somebody's praying from the soul. You know when the anointing is on the person. Yeah. And that is where I think the distinction is, because for Christians, it's not just about the music. It's about the spiritual experience and whether or not it brings glory to God.
Absolutely. I'll share a quick story one of my lecturers shared with me. I don't know if you've ever heard an orchestra, and when they're about to do a song or a concert, and at the beginning they're tuning up, and it sounds like chaos, but all the instruments are just tuning. All right. So there was a person who I don't remember what country he's from, but it's some like a Middle Eastern country. And he would have been in a Western country, and he attended a classical concert for the first time listening to classical music. And after listening to the whole concert, his feedback was, it was okay, it was all right, but I really enjoyed that piece at the very beginning. The piece he was referring to was the chaos, the tuning, or whatever, but that sounded like the music where he was from. Like, so it, like, as I said, personal, where we grew up and our personal experience and associations has so much to do with how we respond to music.
Yes, it does. And I really believe that Romans 12, where it tells us not to be conformed to the world, also applies to our music. I think that is very important for us. If we're going to the kingdom, we must have a kingly mindset. Mm-hmm. It's not just about physically reaching there. And we're going to get there because in our hearts and in our lives, we have developed a repetition of manifesting kingdom values. And we can't say that, all right, kingdom values for everything, but when it comes on to the music, no. the music must be a part of who we are, because it helps to shape who we are. In our low moments, it helps to bring us up back. And if the theology is wrong, then it will lead us down the wrong plane.
Absolutely. Yeah. Transitioning. So I oftentimes speak to persons that watch the podcast, and I want to hear from them what they want to hear about, what they want feedback on, some clarity on. And one of my good friends, she's a bit confused and concerned about this vaccine thing, because she's hearing that vaccine is the mark of the beast, and the Bible says you won't be able to buy and sell, and now you can't go inside the supermarket without your mask. And so give us some clarity on COVID-19, the vaccine, what that means for us as Christians. Talk to us.
All right, let's start with COVID, and then we can touch the vaccine, then we can move to the mark of the beast. So COVID is real. COVID is here. However, whatever we want to think about it in terms of where it originated from, that to me is on the water under the bridge. We have persons who are losing their lives. We have doctors who are exhausted to their absolute limit. We have hospitals that are booked to the fullest capacity. Surgeries have to be put off. The entire world has been put on pause. And so COVID is real. COVID is a real threat to us at this time. It is a threat to our lives. It's a threat to our livelihood. And so we have to take COVID seriously. And each person has a responsibility to do what is necessary to help to ensure that we are not endangering ourselves or families and others. Yeah, we have a responsibility as brothers and sisters, as Christians, to ensure that, we be a good Samaritan. We look after our brother in need. And so that's very important. Am I my brother's keeper? Jesus asked. And of course, that was a rhetorical question. So we know what the answer is. So COVID is real. Now, I know there are two different aspects of the conversation when it comes on to the vaccine. I'm not going to enter into the pro-vax or the anti-vax part of it. I think everybody needs to sit down, read, do their own understanding. Of course, using credible sources, because there are a lot of conspiracy theories and false and myths. Myths that are out there that are floating around, and some individuals are promulgating that as gospel. So I'm not going to get into
the WhatsApp prophets.
Yeah, man, the WhatsApp prophets. I'm not going to go there. But everybody needs to make a decision about the vaccine. And I understand why some persons are hesitant towards taking the vaccine, because the vaccine came really quick. Normally vaccines are not made so quickly. I don't think there are individuals who feel comfortable with it. I think that there are individuals rather who don't feel comfortable with it because it has been made so quick, and the long-term effects of the vaccine have not yet been proven. What we have seen, though, based on what the studies are showing, is that the vaccine, those individuals who take it, that they actually don't make it to their hospital if in fact they become infected, if they get the virus again. Of course, the CDC and the World Health Organization are tweaking some of that, because we're now seeing that the Delta variant can actually be spread by persons who are vaccinated. And so wearing of masks and all those things become another conversation. So I think reading, educating ourselves on it is very important. And then making a decision in respect to that is also very important. I don't think that we should, on this point, we should try to, how do you say this, crucify individuals who decide to, or individuals who decide not to. I really think it's a matter of individuals' personal choice. It's a matter of health. And health is within your domain as an individual. There are individuals who are scared of taking vaccines because of negative experiences they had before with vaccinations. And so everybody has to weigh this on their own individual basis, and of course, with the proper knowledge and medical advice. As to whether or not it's whether or not the vaccination and everything that attends to it is mark of the beast, that now we can have a conversation on, because the Bible is very clear that the mark of the beast is going to come at a particular time in Earth's history. If you look at Revelation chapter 14, you're able to see that there are three angels' messages there. Three angels' messages. They follow one after the other. And it's tied together. So if we look at verse 6, it says, "And I saw another angel fly in the midst of heaven, having the everlasting gospel to preach unto them that dwell on the earth, and to every nation and kindred and tongue and people, saying with a loud voice, Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come, and worship him who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and the fountain of waters." So firstly, this first angel has an important message to bring towards the entire globe. So we have to understand that even before we get to the matter of the mark of the beast, the number of his name, etc., we have to have the end time message encircling the entire globe. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24:14, "This gospel of the kingdom shall be preached into all the earth as a witness, and then shall the end come." So let's put it into context. So this gospel message is going to have we're going to have to go to the ends of the earth, everywhere, every country, every kindred, every people. It has to get there. And what is the message that it's going to spread? It's going to call people back to fearing God. It's going to call people back to recognizing that glory is to be given to God. And it's going to call people to let them know that this is a special moment of Earth's history. Fear God and give glory to him, for the hour of his judgment is come. So we are living then in a very important moment in Earth's history, the judgment hour of Earth. This is the moment when God is going to be wrapping up everything that has to deal with Earth, where the books are going to actually, everybody's story is going to be sealed. So that message has to go to the earth. Even before you get to the mark of the beast, that has to do it, because that's the first angel. So we have to understand that there is, I don't want to say a structure, but maybe there is a build up towards the mark of the beast. It's not just like that. It doesn't just come because of a vaccination. The scriptures tell us, and it's the scriptures which have put in our minds this idea of mark of the beast. So if it's the scriptures who have put in that idea, then we have to go to the scriptures to find what the scriptures actually say. Then you have the second angel that comes on, and the second angel cries and says, "Babylon is falling, that great city, because she made all nations drink of the wine of the wrath of her fornication." We could do a long study on that, but suffice it to say that there is a system that is anti-God, anti-God's values, anti-God's truths. And God in the last days, because of the first angel's message being global, this system is going to come under attack. And this system is going to fall. It's going to crumble. You're going to see it come apart before our very eyes. Paul in Thessalonians speak about the man of sin being revealed. Yeah. So it is going to come at a particular moment of Earth's history. And then after that second angel's message, then comes the part that many individuals are focused on, verse 9 through to verse 10. And it says, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. So here you see a build-up. The mark of the beast doesn't just come like that. The mark of the beast is a build-up. The three angels' message, it comes on the last end of it. And if you notice, Dale, the scriptures is clear that it's an issue of worship. It's an issue of worship, not vaccination, worship. It's an issue of worship. And even as you go through out the entire chapter, if you look on chapter 14 of Revelation, if you look on chapter 12, if you look on chapter 13, and chapter 13 is very clear as to how this beast will be able to get its power to worship and get the people to worship. And so you have to look on it in the context of scripture. And so the mark of the beast is not yet. It will come because the Bible speaks about it, but it's not yet, and it's definitely not vaccination. What we can say is that from Revelation chapter 12 through to Revelation chapter 14, you see a consistent call to worship God, to fear God. And then you see another, on the other hand, you see another character, the beast, who is looking for worship, who is inviting worship, who is soliciting worship, and who is getting worship in an illegitimate way because he's not God. And so vaccination is not the mark of the beast. It is not. The mark of the beast surrounds the issue. The end time issue is going to be that of worship. And who do we decide to whose side we decide to be on after we would have gotten the full light of truth, and we would have been able to see exactly what the man of sin has been doing behind the scenes.
How do we know when the message has reached all of the world? How do we know that it's not, and how do we know when that happens?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. We will know because the scriptures speak in Revelation chapter 18 about the glory of God coming down and lighting the earth. In Revelation 18 verse 1, and after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And it goes back to this very same thing that we had in Revelation chapter 14. Listen to it. He cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich because through the abundance of her delicacies. And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. So there's going to be in the last days a flow of changes. So there's going to be a loud cry that is going to go out. The entire world, that angel that comes to lighten the come down from heaven with great power and lightens the earth, is coming down to assist with the promulgation of the end time message. So you are going to see a spiritual revival. You're going to see the end time. You're going to see it all across the globe, and it's going to be a global spiritual awakening, a global spiritual revival. It's not just going to be here. It's not just going to be there. It's going to be a global spiritual revival. So it will be clear, and then the message because everybody would have been able to understand the truths of God's word and the end time message of the three angels' message. What you'll find is that God is going to be calling out people globally. Come out of her, my people. Come out of her, that you be not partakers of her sins. God wants to separate us for eternity. And if we're joined with something that is going to lead us to separate from him, he's going to call us out from it. And so there's going to be a global calling out. Individuals are going to be coming out of Babylon. You're going to see a global, you're going to see this. Remember, Revelation 14 speaks about the message going to every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. Every nation, kindred, tongue, and people. Right now, we're fighting to get into what is known as the 1040 window. The United Nations has about 214 or 30 something countries that is recognized, I think somewhere there, as being the nations of the earth. And the Christian church has not been able to get into that block where the Muslims, the 1040 window, which is right there. It's a very hard place for us to get. But I believe that God is going to open up the door. The last challenge was how we're going to get into the Soviet Union. And we saw that when the walls came crumbling, the Lord just opened it and allowed individuals to go in. So there are still areas across the globe that the gospel message has not yet reached. Even in China, we have underground churches. We have persons who are worshiping God in silently. So the message is going out. It's just that it has not yet synchronized as a global movement where it's now manifested in a very rich and powerful way. But God is timing how he does it. Because if you allow the people to come out too early, it can have adverse effects. So they will come out at the right time, and you will see the global movement taking place. Nobody will have to tell you. You'll be able to see for yourself.
Gotcha. I've seen persons say New Start alone can heal every disease. For those who don't know what New Start is, it's an acronym where nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, and trust in God. So it's health principles that are very commendable and that we should live by. But I've seen persons who are against the vaccine, and again, we're not making a decision for anybody, but I've heard the argument that New Start alone is sufficient to heal any disease. What would you say about that?
I can't contend with individuals who believe that. I know I am a firm believer in New Start. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe in it. We must, however, recognize that we are living in a sinful world. And sometimes even our best efforts come back to not give us the result that we want. One of the most painful things that has happened over the past couple of weeks is the fire that took the life of the president of the Allegheny East Conference.
Right.
And I sat down and I asked myself the question, God, it's hard. It's hard. It's hard as a Christian to accept certain things. You have to trust God to take care of you. You have to have implicit trust to take care of you. And I do believe in the health reform message. It's something I totally believe in. And individuals who believe in it, I believe that some of us go over to a tangent. So some of us are fanatics. And I do believe there are some individuals who are searching for balance. And then there are individuals who are coming on stream. They're trying to learn it genuinely. So I don't quarrel with individuals who believe that's their belief, and if that's their belief, then fine. It's not something that I get hung up about.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I don't live in Jamaica anymore, but most of my friends are in Jamaica, and especially on Facebook, and I see the conversations, and I'm not sure of all the different measures that are put in place, but I've seen where persons are pushing back on some of the like when church isn't allowed versus certain businesses that are allowed to be open, that is, And some persons are saying the church parties are probably allowed, but church is shut down. Talk to me about that. Like, what are your thoughts on how should we feel as Christians as it relates to the government trying to deal with this COVID thing, which is real, but also how that affects how we worship? How should we feel about that?
Well, the church is a partner for the good of society. We do not exist in a vacuum. In as much as we are the single most powerful entity on earth, I believe that we don't exist in a vacuum. We live in a world, and we have to abide, as the scriptures tell us, by the laws of the land. My issue is whether the law is equally applied on all levels, whether we are being, maybe discrimination is not the word, but whether we are given the same latitude that others are. Jamaica, I can say, our churches all across Jamaica have mainly, by and large, complied with all of the protocols in respect to the COVID-19 issue. We have complied. The government has said that. The Honorable Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, has indicated that. We have been obedient. We have scaled back on our services. We have closed our doors. It hurts, though, when we see the disparity between how the church is treated and other areas, sectors of society are treated. And it seems as though the church, because we're not a capitalist entity, doesn't have much weight or value. So there have been a lot of conversations around that. Parties are keeping, and parties, people are closer than they are in churches, because we make sure persons are separated 6 feet, and all of the protocols are put in place.
There are a lot closer.
Yeah, they are so much closer. A whole lot. And when you see that, when you pass some of the places across the island and you see persons bungling up, that doesn't happen at church.
Right.
And so the question is asked, why is the church treated in the way that it is? And individuals take issue with it. I personally have asked the question. I've not yet gotten an answer that stands up for the moment, but I guess we continue to do our part. We continue to listen to the government. We continue to listen to the officials that are there, because we have a responsibility to do so and to help to not allow the spread to continue. We do have a responsibility. We're trying to do our part. We just hope that we also will not be so, tightly treated. When you look on the current arrangement, for example, we have to measure the square feet for the church, divide that by 40. Then the number that we get, we use 70% of that. Well, they move it from 50% now to decide how many members are to come to church. We have a formula for that, but parties don't seem to have that. So
yeah. All right, I have 2 more questions.
Yeah.
You said a while ago, the church, you believe, is the single most powerful entity.
Yes.
I'm a part of the church, so I want to know why I'm a part of it. Tell us why it's the most powerful entity on earth. Talk to us.
Well, let us start on the fact that there is a sovereign God. Whatever you want to call him, for us, he's creator. There is a God who made us. We couldn't have made ourselves. That's number one. And this God has revealed himself in so many different ways. He's more powerful than anything that we actually have here on earth. He's more powerful than the United States Army. He's more powerful than any nuclear weapon. So Firstly, the church starts with God. I know that there's a conversation that some individuals believe that, I have God, I don't need a church. Well, God is the head of the church. So if you have God, the alignment of God with the church should make you aligned some way, shape, or form with the church. Of course, I know that there are the individuals who have had negative experiences with the church. There are individuals who have been hurt by the church. There are individuals who have not had their questions sufficiently answered by the church. I know that. But at the end of the day, God is the head of the church. So the creator sovereign God is head of the church. And what he has done is put in place a plan which overrules everything that happens here on earth. Everything that happens here on earth, he overrules it. His sovereign plan will never be thwarted. It may, because of the intersection of human choice, be manifested later or delayed, but his plan cannot be thwarted. And because his plan cannot be thwarted, and because he's aligned with eternity, and he's calling us to prepare for eternity, the church is the most powerful entity on earth. Everything that we have here is going to be destroyed. Everything that we have is going to be thrown away. And for those of you who may not be believers, if you don't believe in a God, if I believe in a God, which I do, I don't lose anything. If I wake up one day and find out that really and truly there is no God, I don't lose anything at all. There's nothing that is lost to the believer when someone says to him, listen, there is no God. If there's no God, that's good. It doesn't. But if there is a God and I don't believe in a God, that is where the issue comes. And this God has put in place a plan which overrules all of the plans on earth. And he's creating eternity for us. And so it is the most powerful agent on earth. And because it is involved not just in the shaping of mind, but also in the cleansing and transformation of the heart, which leads to a life change, I think that is more powerful than anything else.
It's funny you say that, because oftentimes I hear persons say like, well, if there's, like I heard Christians say like, if there's no God, I might as well, do the party, and I might as well have the sex, and I might as well. But when I think about it, the Christian life is the best life, even for this life here. It's not like punishment to get to heaven. Even in this life here, it's the best life. Now, am I saying personally I would have committed to it? Probably not. But it is the best life to live here, irrespective of making it to heaven or hell. So it's just interesting that point that people make.
Yeah. It is.
Mm-hmm.
Life on earth for the Christian, it's not always rosy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's certainly a joyous experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. So the last question, for those who, whether it's the church leaders, because I'm a part of the AY committee at my church, and it's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a struggle right now with things not being physical. We have physical divine service, but virtual AY. So for the persons, for the church leaders who are having a rough time coping, or for the young person who the Zoom thing just isn't keeping them, it's not doing it for them, or the church goer who it's a hard adjustment, and it's taking a toll on their spiritual life. What words of encouragement do you have for that person?
Well, it's taking a toll on all of us, myself included. I'm zoomed out. I'm so zoomed out. I was zoomed in. I got zoomed out about October last year. I found out that it was affecting me. And spending so much time on Zoom, you have the meetings, and everybody think now you have more time than ever before to do everything. And I found out that I was zoomed out from about October. I was getting easily tired, mentally drained. And afterwards, I just don't feel like, I just feel like I'm gone. So I understand the zoom out. And church is definitely different in the virtual space than it is in the physical space. No joke about that. It is hard. It's difficult. I want to say to you though, to each and every individual out there who is going through that challenge, nothing beats having a personal relationship with God. I think one of the things that the pandemic has taught us is that people were heavily reliant on church, heavily reliant. I'm not saying you shouldn't be reliant on church, because we are the church technically, but you understand what I mean, the church experience. People were very heavily relied on that. And when that was removed, you saw that there was a vacuum that could not have been filled. And what is happening, Dale, is that in many of our Christian homes, we're not praying, we're not worshiping, we're not spending time with God. For many homes, this idea of worship is just something that is to be done in the church building on a particular day. And that is where that's where a major problem arises. Because if you only know God in the church building, you don't know God at all. If the only place you can experience him is when you're with others, then your experience is limited. Experience, the relationship that we call to have with God, is not a corporate relationship, is a personal relationship that manifests in a corporate experience. So I bring something to worship with me. I bring something to the table. I am not just going to receive.
Right.
Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise. I know many times we'll come to church and we're broken. Fine, but you have to bring something. You have to bring a sacrifice. You have to bring an offering. You know, if the patriarchs of the scriptures were to raise up today and see how some of us enter church without anything at all, just empty-handed, our souls are empty, our minds are empty, or our pockets are empty, they will be surprised. It's a foreign concept to the biblical theology. We enter into his presence with something. We come with a sacrifice. We come with an offering. And when you spend time personally with God, many people I see talk, oh, God doesn't speak to me. I wish God could speak to me. Like, are you spending time really with God? Or you just wake up in the morning and say, hello, God, good morning. All right, see you later. Thank you for today. And you're gone. That is not going to help. You have to have a personal one-on-one relationship with God. That is where the depth of the experience is. And you might think I'm speaking about something that is perfect and out of this world. No, look on the Psalms and you will realize that David went to God when he was broken. David went to God when he was messed up. David went to God when he fell. David went to God when he was happy. David went to God when he had enemies. David went to God. He built a God structure around his life. Too many of us, we only come to God when something is bad. We don't have a bona fide relationship with him. We treat him like how we treat an extinguisher on the wall, only when it's needed. And because of that, we're not able to experience the depth of living a God-centered life, a God-focused life. So I'm saying to everybody, find some time. Years ago when I was in high school, I'll never forget, I read the book Alone with God and Christ Objects Lessons. And it parachuted me to start. First, I said I was going to do 15 minutes with the Lord. And the 15 minutes grew to 30 minutes. The 30 minutes grew to an hour. The hour grew to 2. And I would wake up from 4 o'clock and I would just be pouring out. People look on me today and they say, Pastor, how is it you know the scriptures so? And you're teaching an EJC virtual church. And well, it's not, it doesn't just come like that. It's not, for me, it's not a makeup thing. It's very real. it's spending time with God, having God pour into your soul, pour into your spirit, pour into your mind, pour into you before you go anywhere. So you hear from God before you hear from anybody else. And I've found that in times like these, when the pandemic rages and we're separated from each other, the joy of the Lord, the presence of the Lord becomes your strength.
Wow. Wow. Pastor Omar Oliphant, I thank you so much for being here. It was a pleasure. It was a blessing really hearing from you.
Yeah, it was good talking with you. I hope we covered sufficient for your podcast for today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this is another episode of TBH. Until next time, peace out.